Gridley family.
Oh, I appreciate that. Now, yeah, whatever you like, yeah.
When I come to Glenn, we could talk about all his achievements, but it'd take me all day. So I thought I might take it from a personal point of view. Glenn's been a councillor since 2012, Division 9, and married to this amazing lady, Jude. She's got her own production, own film business as well, with 3 boys. But what I look at is like, it's amazing how you and Jude support each other, and both of them have got very, successful achievements in their life, and the support for each other is incredible. And to watch them to come together as one, in my eyes, and how they serve the community or give to the community is real credit. So Glenn and Jude are constantly working together to help others, and when you see how much effort they put in helping others, it's a real privilege to see what you and Jude do, and it's a real honour to have you as our councillor.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, mate. Thank you. Well, g'day, guys.
Just one other thing.
Oh.
Any Titans fans? Just a little stat. Every time Glenn's been to the Titans game, they won.
That's all right. In 12 years, it's probably been eight or 9 times. So yeah, I've never seen the Titans lose. It only happens on TV for me. So yeah, there you go. Thank you for the introduction, and I feel a bit humbled actually that Glenn's spoken so personally about me. I came with I got a brief saying some of the people who were interested to know about real estate and some of the connected industries to real estate. So I've brought a pretty commercialised kind of presentation today to talk about Skyridge, which is a large development. But it's really lovely to hear your personal words about myself and Jude, and it is something that I care very deeply about. But for those of you who don't know, like Glenn said, my name's Councillor Glenn Tozer. I am one of the 15 city leaders that run the City of Gold Coast, which is the second largest local government authority in Australia. We manage about a $2 billion operating budget each year, and we have about $25 billion worth of assets that we manage. We're one of the only councils in Australia that manages its own water utility, for instance, and we take all your shit away from your house as well, So we manage, all the sewers and waste, but we do lots of other fun stuff as well. And we're a really large organisation, and one of the things that we love, myself and my colleagues love, is that we think that the Gold Coast is the best place to live in the world. It's an amazing city that has 57 kilometres of beautiful white beaches, only 20 minutes drive from World Heritage rainforest areas, and 3 universities, amazing opportunities for business, and we think it is, like I said, the best city in the world. But before I start any sort of presentation, I always just like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, and that's the Kumbameri people in this area here. I want to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and I appreciate right now in our nation we're talking about lots of different things in relation to First Nations people, so the best thing I can say to you is be informed about the issues, read all the documents that you can, don't be ignorant about really important matters. So I'm not going to state a view on that today, but I encourage you, if you don't know what the whole referendum thing's about, be informed. Australians should be informed. That's how we should be engaging with important public issues. Alrighty. So Glenn did a really good job of introducing my family. I am first and foremost a dad of 3 amazing boys. They're 14, 12 and 10. And I'm also a husband of Jude Kalman, who runs a small film production company that works almost exclusively with charities and social enterprises. And I'm a bit humbled again today because I've been given about 17 minutes to talk to you. And last night my wife spoke at TAFE Queensland with 6 other people about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. She had 17 minutes. And her presentation is a lot more interesting than mine was. She said, "Glenn, have you got a PowerPoint presentation?" I'm like, "No, I'm just gonna go off the cuff and talk about real estate. It's gonna be great." But Judy had video and all that stuff, and she, in 2020, did speak at the United Nations in New York about social impact filmmaking. So she has a much higher profile than me, and I'm very humbled that she chose to lower her standards to spend the rest of her life with me. I look after the area in the city, in the southwest of the local government area of the Gold Coast. So it's kind of the green behind the gold. My area extends from the New South Wales border all the way up to the south of Nerang, and then from Binnaburra, or the kind of the scenic rim edge, all the way over to the M1. As you're heading down the M1, you'll see King's Christian College, a big school. I take a beeline down to the New South Wales border from there, meaning that I miss out on Currumbin and Eleonora, but I include suburbs like Springbrook and Bonogan and the amazing Reedy Creek, which is where Glenn lives. So Mudgeeraba and Gilston, and I go all the way out to Lower Beachmont. I also have Springbrook and Numinbah in my area. It's a beautiful kind of area, kind of characterised by larger lots, farming land, green vegetated areas, but also has some really lovely kind of economic hubs in places like Mudgeeraba, a little bit of Reedy Creek, and we have a pretty interesting tourism proposition as one of the most popular searches for tourists in our city is, hinterland walks. And when you come to the Gold Coast and when you're showing people that, they want Pernbrook Falls and Springbrook, you want to take them up there for at least a trip. And that area is all in my area. Even today, when I first turned up, people asked me what I do before council. I think Troy, brought that up a bit earlier. Before council, I actually was selling Yellow Pages. So I started before Google was.
Friend of ours.
Yeah, so that'd be almost 20 years ago now. I started before Google was a thing, and at the time that I started working in Yellow Pages, it was basically 90% of a small to medium enterprise's marketing spend. And so we became a trusted confidant at that point, and I worked my way up over a period of about a decade and finished up as really the Yellow Pages was kind of phasing out. And I was working, actually not on the Yellow Pages much at all. I was managing government accounts for both Queensland and Northern Territory for, it was mostly directory assistance and white pages, helping people from the community connect with the right government department to do what they needed to do and talk on campaigns. It was a really great time, but I was also through that time the chairman of a local radio station, a community radio station, and also bred full-blood Wagyu beef. So I had a few other business interests on the side, and my background in agriculture and media and in government accounts put me in a really strong position to be able to advocate for council interests inside the city of Gold Coast as a council. It was a really great transition for me. I was commuting to Brisbane. If anyone's ever had to drive to Brisbane on a daily basis, it's heartbreaking, and I was spending probably 15 to 20 hours in the car each day instead of with my young family, and that was a really pretty dark time. But the opportunity came up to run against Ted Shepherd, who at the time was the town planning chair, and he and I had different ideological views, we might say, and I ran a campaign and beat him in 2012. And I've been serving the city ever since. It's been almost 12 years now. Really love what I do. I love the area I represent. In the area I represent, there's 45,000 people, about 30,000 voters. There's about 15 schools. And so out of the 14,000 households that I have in Division 9, about 9,000 of them are couples with kids, or couples in not always couples, but single families with kids. It's families in my area. And because it's families in our area, the things that I work on a daily basis are really driven by those interests. Whether it's school P&Cs or sporting activities or neighbourhood watch, these sort of issues, community safety, schooling, sport, become central to my everyday work. And if you could categorise my day's work into 4 different things, it's actually potholes, pathways and parks. That's the first thing. It's anything to do with those little things you expect your councillor to sort out. If there's a pothole in your street, or the swing's broken at the park, or there's a pathway network missing or a crack in the path, we deal with that. My office deals with that on a pretty regular basis. I've got a team of 2 in my office who deal with those sort of queries. It's a bit of fun, I play it down, but it's actually really important that quality of life improves when you feel like you've got a sense of pride in your local neighbourhood. And so we take that part pretty seriously. The other thing I deal with on a relatively regular basis is emails and events. So I get a lot of time getting emails, and I also go to a lot of events. As you might imagine, in a community of 45,000 people, there's lots of community groups that want you at their annual general meeting or their special presentation, and I spend a lot of time going to those sort of events. I was honoured to be invited today to you guys. This is very much out of my area and probably a little bit out of my comfort zone. But I met Glenn, he's recently joined the Mudgeeraba Chamber of Commerce as one of the committee members, and he invited me to the pub and then introduced me to Campbell, and all of a sudden I got signed up for this thing. So, which I suppose, because you guys are all into referrals to each other, I suppose that's how it works. You guys are just practicing this referral piece. So emails and events, managing that sort of administration and also going out to activities like that are an important part of what I do. The other part is the legislative part of my role. So council meets normally once a month, and then there's a series of 6 or 7 committees that feed into the council meeting, and at each of the committees we're legislatively obliged to attend those meetings. and there's a process to go through if we don't attend those meetings. If we miss 2 of those meetings, then our colleagues can effectively write to the Minister and ask us not to be a councillor anymore. So that process is quite a strict process, and it is a rare occasion that I would miss a council meeting or a committee meeting. I'm in those committees on a regular basis. I serve on the Lifestyle and Community Committee, the Economy, Tourism and Events Committee, for which I'm the chair, and the Water and Waste Committee. I'm also on the Special Budget Committee, as every councillor is, and I've served in over the last 10 years, I've served in various different kind of committee roles and committee outside or advisory committees outside the normal processes. I'm also on the Advisory Council for the National Parks Association of Queensland, which is a peak body that manages the advocacy for national parks. And I do that because Springwood National Park and Lamington National Park are in the division I represent, and I see them being an important both environmental asset but also a really important tourism asset, and I want to be able to be at the table when those sort of conversations about utilising our national parks are talked about. The last thing I do, that was 3 categories. The 4th category is social media. It's the bane of my existence. I don't know what you think about bloody socials. And I saw, we talked here about the groundwater social media page, and a lot of people these days expect to be able to contact their public representatives on social media. And so I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram on a regular basis, and people will send me messages at all times of the night and morning, expecting me to, have an opinion about a certain thing or respond to a certain query. And I do my best. As a younger politician, I've tried to make it my habit to be really accessible and transparent on social media about local issues. Even just yesterday afternoon, I posted about a development application of 81 new lots in Gilston. And it's in the planning committee today. And even though I probably didn't have to post it on the Gilston Facebook page, I put a picture up and put it on there. And I did it on purpose, thinking there's going to be people who are angry about development. But right now, our city's in this really difficult situation where there are not enough houses for people to live in, and we actually need to increase supply. And so whilst the Gilston community was very dissatisfied with 400 square metre to 600 square metre lots being made available in Gilston, frankly, the need that we have in the community right now for lots just like that is it's essential for our city to continue to grow and be able to, to be able to house people. The housing crisis we're facing is so important that development like that was worth having a social media conversation. There's really crappy stuff on social media as well. Around election time each year, I've got to deal with people, bringing up my old divorces and bringing up, at one time a mate of mine invited me to contact him anytime to go to a concert at his venue, the Night Quarter, and so I reached out and said, the Cat Empire's coming up, why don't we have that beer we've been talking about? And then 6 months later, he reported me to the Office of the Independent Assessor for trying to leverage my position as a councillor to go to the, I was like, far out. That's just, you never really know who your friends are. And that's why my private life, my personal life is so precious to me. My wife and my kids and my family, they're going to be with me regardless of what I do in politics. But it is a really hard life sometimes in public life. And everyone's got an opinion about Tom Tate, and everyone expects me to know exactly what's going on with Tom. And today I'm happy to answer some questions about that as well. But that creates a really important need for boundaries. So really distinguishing as a personal, from a personal perspective, what is public life and what is private life, and how do we find those boundaries safely? So I talked to Anita before. She said, I'm taking notes about what you speak about. And I said, I'll give you the wink if you're not allowed to say something. I want you to feel comfortable asking me any question, but if you ask me a hairy one, I might just give her a wink, and we might not put that in the minutes. So that's a little bit about what I did. And that's kind of the first 5 or 6 minutes. I do want to make sure I spend a bit of time talking about Skyridge, which is a big development. But I thought I might, just before I do that, I'll just talk about some of the things I'm most proud of. So in the 12 years I've served, we've delivered really wonderful support for a new junior AFL club in Mudgeeraba, the Mudgeeraba Spartans, which has just recently joined with the Robina Roos, and the Robina Mudgeeraba Roos has been established. The Bonogan Valley Bulls Cricket Club, the Mudgeeraba Show Society's gone from strength to strength. We've got a bunch of new neighbourhood watch groups and a really strong group of PNCs who manage all our schools. We've established a park run. Hands up if anyone's been to park run before? A couple of people park run. Mudgeeraba has its own park run, a quick 5-kilometre run on a Saturday morning, and so we've gone from about 30 people running on a Saturday morning to I think we have about 150 to 200 every morning. So super excited about that. It's an active and healthy lifestyle is really important for our area. If you ever want to, what we've got in Mudgeeraba, we've got a shaded route the whole way. There's trees coming up, so if you're a park runner or if you like a shaded run in the morning, I can recommend the Mudgeeraba Park Run. We've got some of the fastest times as well because of that. bit of shade and all flat. There's no roads to cross, and there's no hills. We've also managed to give the Mudgebar Soccer Club a new indoor rec centre. The Mudgebar pool's got improved mobility access and a heated program pool. We're also spending another $10 million on that soon. The Lower Beachmont Community Centre and Mudgebar Community Centres are thriving. The Mudgebar Community Centre in particular now has 4,500 people visited every month. Groups like yoga, and we've got little tiny ballerinas, and we've got 70-year-old men doing a fitness class. It's a really awesome little community centre. If you ever come out Mudgebar Way and you want to do a yoga class or a Tai Chi class, we've got kind of that stuff going on out our way. The Firth Park Sports Precinct is a really exciting project, which I'll talk about a bit later. But it's effectively going to be a $40 to $60 million investment in junior sports in our area, plus a high-performance training centre. We're putting that out to an expression of interest soon, where peak bodies and large organisations will be able to submit to help us build that as part of a 54-hectare redevelopment and expansion of a sports precinct. And like I said before, with 15 schools and so many young families, we just want to keep kids active, and junior AFL and cricket and that sort of stuff is something that really helps them do that. We've already got rugby league and netball. We've got 4,000 members of our local netball clubs down there. It is a humming, thriving, flourishing centre for kids' sport, and I love it, and that's what we're passionate about right now. I do want to talk about Skyridge. But last night I called the guy who runs the Skyridge Centre, and he said, "Glenn, don't go off the cuff. Let me give you the speaking points." So I've got some notes here from Chris Alston, who runs a group called CRA Group, and he has provided me some really good talking points about what Skyridge is. And I just also brought, if you're interested, if the real estate sector is something that's really interesting, and maybe you have not a real estate company, but a service industry that speaks into the real estate industry. This is the Skyridge fancy document that they give out people who are really serious buyers. And I told him yesterday I wasn't a serious buyer. I'm not buying a house right now. But if you want to take a look, I brought a bunch of copies, and they're for you to take with you if you like. Yeah, so if you want to have a look, maybe we can hand a few of them around and you can just have a bit of a look through. So they're a bit fancy. The other thing I brought here is the current stage that's open for sale. There is not many blocks left, but there was also somewhere in there a list of prices. Not that I'm not a real estate salesperson, but people are kind of interested in it. Even interested in it not because they're buying, but maybe they've got a friend who's buying, or maybe they just kind of live in the area and they want to see what housing prices are like. At the moment, the cheapest lot is a 2,000 square metre block for about $535,000, and it's got some power lines at the back of it, but it's a pretty good price for what it is. It's cheap for what it is, and then there's a bunch of other blocks that are normal standard, and they're in that $700,000 to $900,000 for the lots, which are pretty, as far as the market goes right now, they're phenomenal. The development itself is really going to have $1 million to $2 million houses, house and land kind of packaged places. So, but Skyridge, talking points as follows. Glenn, here we are from Chris. It's 342 hectares is the total site area. And for a bit of comparison, the whole of Varsity Lakes is 340 hectares. So it is a brand new suburb. It got state ministerial approval for up to 3,500 dwellings, which is about 10,000 residents. It will be a new suburb for the Gold Coast. When you drive past now on the M1, you can only see kind of the first third of the site, and there's about 2/3 of the site over the hill. It's much larger than people realise. The planning approval took 12 years. It kind of commenced in 2008, which is about 4 years before I was elected, and then we kind of got that final approval through some of the most recent operational works activities done in about 2020. It comprised local, state and federal approvals because of some of the offsets and the vegetation offsets that needed to occur. It's about a $2 billion investment at the time we did the economics, but it's probably, they're talking right now, it's about $3 billion over the life of the development itself. It's going to be delivered in 45 stages over a 15-year time frame, which will go through to approximately 2036. So if you're involved in any of those industries or the real estate industry right now, my gut feeling is that there will be a fingerprint that you have in Skyridge before that time kind of comes to its end. The construction commenced on the site in February 2021 with some of the civil works. The first stages are being titled later this year, and in early 2024 we expect to see house construction commencing for residential lots. The first residents will be moving into the estate in the mid to late 2024 area. Right now, if you drive past, you'll see houses being built. That's the display village. Given the current building climate, it's been a bit of a struggle. I think they started with 37 builders in the display village, and now there's 18 builders in the display village, and I think that's just been a bit of a challenge for them. That being said, we now have some phenomenal houses in that display village. Those display villages, the display village, and I drove through yesterday, they're all spending between $1 and $2 million on the display houses. It is going to be a state-of-the-art display village that you won't see anything like it on the coast. There's a diversity of lot sizes throughout the development, which start from about 180 metres squared and they go up to about 1,800 metres squared for the first stages. The average lot size is about 500 metres squared. There's not many of those 180 metres squared lots. There's a couple of corner lots on the edges that are almost like courtyard kind of frontages. But they've really dispersed them throughout the development. And that's probably something I would say is unique to the development. They've really made sure that different size lots are co-located. There is not one lot in the whole development that is more than 400 metres from a park. Parks and public open spaces are really essential to that development. I've been really proud of how that's been delivered. The display village will have 35 homes and it'll be open, we think, around about February of 2024, so before Easter 2024. The next stage of 350 lots is now under construction. There's 75 hectares of open space across the site, centred around a 3 kilometre long ecological corridor that kind of meanders through the centre of the site and has kind of creeks and I'm assuming it will double as one of the drainage reserves that takes things down. But it's really lovely to have 100 to 200 metres of kind of ecological corridor almost throughout the whole site. It really means that the development on either side can enjoy that vegetated and public open space as part of their life, their quality of life. There's a change in elevation from the front of the site to the back of the site, equivalent to a 50-storey building, and it looks east to the Gold Coast skyline and Pacific Ocean. From various vantage points on the site, you can see from Runaway Bay all the way down to Burleigh. It's some pretty spectacular sight up there. It's one of those green spots on the hills that you see when you look west that you don't even realise are houses. So you'll eventually see it. Obviously, we'll be building those houses soon enough, and you'll see it from Broadbeach. There's 16 kilometres of off-road cycling and walking running paths. In the first stages, they're delivering a major 2-hectare park, which will be one of the finest on the Gold Coast, with expansive views, wide-ranging play equipment, and a 500-person amphitheatre for concerts, movies and events, sculpture pieces, and covered barbecue areas and a lookout. They're presently constructing a 180-step climb, 30 metres high, for fitness challenges because of the elevation. They've integrated that into the public open space, which is pretty cool. At the front of the estate of the M1, there'll be a village centre with a mixture of retail, commercial and open space uses. The commercial and retail uses will be of a local centre scale, which is the maximum GFA, about 15,000 square metres, including supermarket, cafes, restaurants, tavern, medical uses, service retailers, banks, chemists. There'll be community green parklands and wetlands in that space and just around that space as well. On the other side of the M1, there's a future 7-hectare industrial precinct to provide land for industrial, manufacturing and storage uses. As you might imagine, those are places where people work, but also with so many people coming in and out over the next 15 years, that storage piece will be an important part of that as well. They've got a community activation and art strategy. Art is a central pillar of the estate placemaking, with a number of mural and sculpture pieces already commissioned and being installed. They've got a full-time community development officer and a community engagement officer who will be proactively managing the ongoing program of events to activate the community and build a sustainable community within Skyridge. They've got a design covenant, all this stuff. It's a joint venture. Boring, 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 boring bit. True master plan community of very high standard, outstanding views of the Gold Coast skyline. The thing that I like about it, that's all the talking points, is the elements of community are the height of urban design right now. So little things like that, every lot is no more, like there's no lot that's more than 400 square metres from a park, really gives that sense of quality of life. The other thing I've loved about the way they've designed it is they've got separate bike lanes, separated from the vehicle lanes, separated from the pathways. They're not co-use pedestrian and bike lanes. There's a separate bike lane, then a car lane, then a pedestrian lane. And that really changes the way we move around the city. When a developer like this comes in and starts instituting those sort of principles in their design, we are actually able, at least to some extent, to change people's behaviour, because people are creatures of habit and they tend to do what they've always done. And unless we change the environment, we don't get people to move differently. In this city, it's gone from 250,000 people to about 700,000 people in a matter of 2 decades. You know, if we don't move differently around the city, we will be a congested city forever. You've been to all those cities around the world. All of you, I'm sure you've travelled. You've been to those places where the places we love most are where you can walk from the train station into town and walk around. We are in Australia really addicted to our cars, and for our city to take that next step, we need to make sure that we design the city such that we don't have to be in our cars if we don't want to. And I think that's a really important thing that Skyridge has brought into their development. Now, I appreciate I'm hitting pretty close to the 15-minute mark now. I'm doing a bit of a real estate spiel for a development that I have no interest in whatsoever as far as a financial interest. But I am really proud that the $3 billion of economic investment is going to be jobs for tradespeople. It's going to be a great place for people to live. And I think it'll be a development that our city can be really proud of. There's lots of other things that I wanted to talk about today, but I want to be conscious of people's time. And I also wanted to offer a Q&A. So next year in March 16 is an election. For the last 12 years I've been working with Tom. Normally when I address a meeting, people have questions about politics or cableways or cruise ship terminals or the Commonwealth Games. It feels like all the big topics start with C. But I really wanted to open up to the floor and make sure I answered some questions about things that happen in my area or things that happen around the city. Who's interested in politics? Please go.
Can I say something in regard to Skyridge? Because this is very interesting. I've never forgotten this. I did business with a guy, because I did real estate in Melbourne for 12 years before coming up here. And a guy rang me, his name was Lou Philippin. And the expansion of Skyridge is like Robina in a way that takes time. He was offered, he had a good friend up here who was a real estate agent, and he was offered a whole lot of acreage. He comes from a farm, these potato farmers that tell you down in Melbourne. So he walked him through all this swampland out in the area, probably about 10 k's from here, etc. And he said, "No, I don't want to buy all this swampland." It was 650,000. This is probably 30 years ago, 35 years ago, or something might be 40 years ago now. No, I'm not interested in that. Not interested in that. And as it turned out, he's always regretted that decision because he wanted to buy high-rise apartments and all that and blocks and what around here. And then he's always regretted that because that area of swampland ended up being Robina.
Yeah, wow.
That's how these all started.
Well,
so they had to take time to do it.
Yeah.
I thought it was associated with Skyridge. That's what happens. It takes time, but I'll tell you what, they really become little cities unto themselves with time.
Yeah, absolutely. So for about 25 years now, the state government has flagged that site for future urban development. And at different times, different councils and different representatives have said, no, it should be protected for the environment and things like that. But it's a unique position in that it's got higher density to the north in Highland Park and the northern section of Wurrungree, and then to the southern section it's got acreage living. It's adjacent to the M1. It's really 10 minutes drive to Broadbeach. It is really a uniquely positioned residential development, and whatever you might say about koalas and you know, on my view, that is a site that actually made most sense for urban development if we're to continue to grow as a city. It will produce, like I said, 3,500 dwellings for supply in the city, and that will be good for people who want to move into the city and also create a bit of balance. Frankly, I know that many of you are in the real estate industry, but you know, as government representatives, we actually don't want to see escalating prices for houses at the rate we've seen over the last 2 years. Everyone likes it and it's great for superannuation funds, but it actually really makes younger people, you know, almost excluded from the market. And we don't want people to do that. People still have the dream that they can be in a house of their own, and that's actually really important to us. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I do want to go to the question here. Yeah.
So just the estate is a great estate.